So he is a very wily and extremely diabolical character who has extraordinary political capacity to manipulate matters in Washington, D.C. They killed 500,000 people, destroyed large parts of the country, effected regime change, but their occupation could not be sustained. So I think the American record from Vietnam till today has been a record of sustained folly. They have extraordinary lethal power available to them.
Who do you think has won this round, or who do you think was able to extract better out of this peace accord, Iran or the United States?
I think it has to be Iran because we expected so little from it. They have, with a very weak hand, they gave an outstanding account of themselves. We therefore had no evidence that they would have. We knew about their courage.
Hello and welcome. You're watching me, Sanket Upadhyay, on The Federal. The show is called AI with Sanket. This is the AI of news because news in India today requires not artificial but analytical intelligence. Finally, peace has been given a chance. A peace accord or a peace deal has been signed between Iran and the United States. But the big question over here is, what has each of these parties achieved? If you look at the United States, the world over, United States looks as if it's in a weak position. It started this war, got very little out of it, thought Iran will fold up and they did not. And now the terms and conditions are such that internationally it is being said and is being spoken about that Trump has lost and is having to give away a lot for the sake of peace. So what was this misadventure all about? I think I have a very seasoned guest to talk about these things. Mr. Talmiz Ahmad, Ambassador Ahmad, as you're aware, is India's former envoy to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Oman. He's also the author of West Asia at War, Repression, Resistance, and Great Power Games. Thank you very much, Ambassador Ahmad. My first question to you is, at the end of this war, if assuming the war has ended, what has each of these parties achieved?
The United States has achieved very little. It had gone into the war under pressure from Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. He had given the impression that it would be a short and sharp strike on Iran. A large number of their top leaders would be killed on day one. They would have regime change, and Donald Trump would emerge as one of the greatest presidents the United States has produced. This was a folly. It was completely wrong for the United States to have embroiled itself in this conflict. They were in dialogue with the Iranians. 2 rounds had already taken place. And there was it made no sense whatsoever. It was very clear within the first 15 days that there was not going to be any regime change, that Iran had been very badly wounded, but there was not enough damage inflicted for it to roll over. Astonishingly, Iran was also able to give a very good account of itself militarily. It was able to shower both Israel and US targets militarily. So what we have finally achieved in this deal is something that the Iranians would have wanted for a very long time. The Iranians are fed up with this sustained confrontation inflicted upon them by the Israelis and the Americans. So if you read the agreement, it very clearly calls for a permanent end to hostilities. After that, it also calls for the removal of all sanctions. It calls for addressing seriously the nuclear issue. It calls for the defreezing of Iranian assets. All these matters have been pending on the international agenda for at least 40 years or so. So I think what they are seeking once and for all is to end all this over negotiations over the next 60 days.
Ambassador Ahmad, you see, it's very hard in international diplomacy, and that too when you are trying to settle wars, for any party to emerge or claim to be victorious. After all, wars end up making people lose more than they gain. While that can be said about the United States of America, it is being spoken a lot about Donald Trump, who's called the international problem child. At the same time, it wasn't as if this war was a gift that kept on giving for Iran. They were battling a battered economy. There was crisis. There was a leadership crisis because of this war. So it was in the interest of everyone to put an end to this. Of course, improving the global supply chain, which again will take a lot of time.
So I agree with you. Wars very rarely nowadays yield winners and losers. You remember that when the Americans attacked Afghanistan, they were able to topple the regime and they were able to put a person of their choice in Kabul. But they had to face a sustained opposition from the Taliban and finally packed their bags and ran away from there. Exactly something similar happened in Baghdad in the case of Iraq. They killed 500,000 people, destroyed large parts of the country, effected regime change, but their occupation could not be sustained. So I think the American record from Vietnam till today has been a record of sustained folly. They have extraordinary lethal power available to them. They are able to inflict extraordinary damage. They are constantly developing their technology, but there is a near total absence of any visionary or strategic thinking. They have the capacity to inflict harm. And as you know, Iran has been a visceral enemy as far as the USA is concerned, as far as Israel is concerned. But I would also point out where Iran is concerned that Israel is the one that has very frequently called the shots. It is the one that has influenced Washington's policy approach. It is the one that has seduced the United States repeatedly to carry out certain actions which are harmful as far as Iran is concerned, but serve no interest as far as the Americans are concerned. I'm not even clear whether they serve any Israeli interest. As far as the Israelis are concerned, what I have seen is that conflict, war, violence are ends in themselves. They have no strategic purpose that I can see. Very often, American presidents in the midst of conflict have told Prime Minister Netanyahu that, Bibi, you don't have a vision, you don't have a strategy, but it doesn't matter to him. So this is where I would say, finally, some wisdom should dawn in Washington. If the Americans are able to distance themselves from the Israelis, finally recognize that Israel has an agenda which is completely separate from the American interest, you might have the emergence of some good sense, some good thinking, and possibility of peace. I'm in fact very worried about the future because I'm not sure that the Israelis are on board as far as the peace process is concerned.
Ambassador Ahmed, but here is the thing. Suppose if America dehyphenates its equation vis-a-vis Israel and Iran, then how long can Israel go on with creating trouble? We all know they have a greater Israel agenda. Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Trump started off as people who were very close to each other, and now they don't see eye to eye. But this peace deal will be judged by the actions of Israel rather than the actions of the United States. Would you agree?
I would agree with that. Israel is very deeply embedded in the American political and information establishment. No American president since John F. Kennedy is able to do anything that the Israeli Prime Minister of the day does not want. This is particularly true of Prime Minister Netanyahu. Right from the time of Clinton up to now with Donald Trump, both his terms, and Biden, he has been able to have his way. some of the most serious mistakes that have been made by the Americans have been made at his behest. He is the one who encouraged the assault upon the Iraqi government in 2003. Israel is the one. Again, with regard to Netanyahu, he is the one who encouraged Donald Trump to withdraw from the JCPOA. He is the one who encouraged Donald Trump to kill Qasem Soleimani. He is the one who ensured that the first ceasefire arrangement in January last year would become abortive and non-functional. He is the one who has so far ensured that the second peace agreement in Gaza is actually effectively a non-starter. After phase one, once he's got his hostages back, he has continued the murder spree in Gaza. They have killed more than about 1,000 people in Gaza since October last year. So I would say to you that it would be an extraordinary development, which we have not seen for the last nearly 40 years, where the American president is finally able to tell the Israeli prime minister of the day that you are wrong. But so we have some way to go. Israel has very powerful elements. The old Jewish lobby has now withered away. Large number of Jews within the United States have turned against the extremist policies of Prime Minister Netanyahu. But then they are able to get new people who come on board. At that time, they tapped into the Christian evangelists and they started running policies. They also have some Jewish billionaires who support the extremist Israeli interests. So you constantly have elements who come up. At the moment, the Republican Party is very viscerally anti-Iran. And within the political establishment itself, you find there would be elements who would work with Israel to ensure that the agreement is subverted. So you have very serious problems which will not be corrected overnight. We also have another problem that pertains to Donald Trump personally. That is his very limited attention span. We are not ever sure that he will really be able to see through an agreement. So far, he has very frequently got into an agreement, but he doesn't have the stamina, the staying power, the diplomatic effort that is actually required to see through complex agreements. The first ceasefire was something that he had insisted upon and then backed off after 2 months and gave Netanyahu a free hand. Even the second agreement in Gaza, of which he has created this board of peace, made himself the chairman in perpetuity, talked about a lot, brought in a lot of people on board, and then has lost interest. And from the first meeting of the Board of Peace in early February, we've not heard about any peace process in Gaza. Therefore, the man's record in terms of attention span, in terms of staying power, in terms of providing diplomatic leadership where it is required, that is an abysmal record. And I would not be surprised if the same applies in this case as well.
Ambassador Ahmed, I want to now let me ask you one more question related to Israel. So what is your view? Do you feel that we have still not seen the end of this war, where there will be complications and America will be able to do very little about these complications because of Israel? Is that a fear?
We will not have war on the scale that we had in the first fortnight of March. That is when major firepower was unleashed upon Iran. Large numbers of people were killed. Extraordinary damage was inflicted on various military facilities, infrastructure, education facilities, medical facilities, etc., for 2 or 3 weeks. When the Iranians started retaliating, it was clear that the regime change agenda wasn't going anywhere. They had tried out the attacks on the nuclear facilities, even those had not gone anywhere. What suits Netanyahu and Israel under him is to maintain a level of no war, no peace. Retain the option of launching an attack as and when it suits Israeli interests, but not allow ever a peace process in West Asia that would accommodate the interests of the Palestinians, bring Iran back into the West Asian mainstream, and release the sanctions to which it has been subjected, provide them with the assets, etc. That is something which is anathema as far as the Israelis are concerned. So I think what they will do is they will allow a certain period to go through, but then subvert the agreement as they did with JCPOA. The JCPOA went through, the Prime Minister spoke in the Congress against a sitting president, against the wishings of a sitting president. He addressed Congress opposing the president's own agreement. And when the presidential change occurred, within a few weeks, he was able to get Donald Trump to withdraw from the agreement and reinstate sanctions. So he is a very wily and extremely diabolical character who has extraordinary political capacity to manipulate matters in Washington, D.C.
Ambassador Ahmed, now my last couple of questions related to Iran. At the end of this conflict, do you see Iran's position in global politics or geopolitics increasing? Is there increasingly a view, according to you, that Iran is not going to fold up like any other country, and you have to be wary of them? And most importantly, in the Muslim world, since you've stayed ambassador of many of these Gulf countries, is this a realization that Iran is now to be feared or to be respected, but not to be ignored? What is your reading?
See, I would answer you as well as I can. Iran has been subjected to sanctions from the very inception of its revolution, from 1979. And these sanctions have become more onerous year after year after year. They can be reimposed any time. Even under the present agreement, there is only a waiver for specific sales. There is no release of the sanctions. There is a final deal with certain very crucial matters pertaining to Iran's interests will have to be finalized and approved. There is a mounting opposition being mobilized by the Israelis and the Republicans against any of this deal going through. So we have to be wary there. I would not categorically say that Iran has emerged as a high-flying leader of the region. Iran remains very severely afflicted as far as sanctions are concerned. It is very seriously damaged during the recent war. Its economy is in a shambles. It has to repair its top leadership. It has to repair various facilities within the country, including infrastructure. Also, many of the issues that had got onto the back burner because of the war have to be addressed once again. The issues relating to the domestic economy, social life, the place of Islam within the country, the place of the IRGC, all of this is a very long way to go. Therefore, if I was sitting in Iran in a leadership position, I would not start strutting on the regional stage anytime soon. Iran has to work with its neighbors. The GCC countries and several other countries have to become its friends, and they have to invest in Iran's development. They have to ensure that the repair of facilities is financed. As of now, it will take a very long time for the Iranian economy to recover. It has been a siege economy for far too long. Iran also has to address other issues. How does it, up to now, because of the siege approach, it was constantly under threat. It was particularly damaged during the Iran-Iraq war when it saw the whole international community attacking it, even the use of chemical weapons. That has played a very deep role in the psychology of the Iranian leadership and its people. They will have to recover from that. For that, you need a prolonged period of peace for you to become a normal country. Iran is not a normal country. It has not been allowed to become a normal country. So I would say to you, don't worry about this Arab world, Islamic world business. Iran has to repair itself and the damage that has been done at home. There is no scope here for anybody to emerge who starts strutting on the West Asian stage.
And you feel, Ambassador Ahmed, that there will be less and less room for progressives in Iran,
There
especially in
will
the
be
aftermath
more
of this
room
war?
for, I cannot imagine. See, there has to be genuine change in the external environment. If Donald Trump succumbs to Israeli pressure or domestic pressure, does not show leadership capacity, which he has not shown so far in any instance, is a very erratic individual, not entirely dependable in terms of the remarks he makes and the promises that he makes. So we have a very long way to go. For the siege mentality that has suffused Iran for so long, for it to dissipate, some real changes have to take place in the immediate environment. If Iran is constantly threatened, there is no scope there for change. You can have a normal scenario at home where you can start accommodating people's aspirations, become sensitive to the needs of women, become aware of what you should do in terms of the commitment to Islam, etc. All of these are very complex matters that Iran has not had the luxury to address ever since it had the revolution. So I would say my own sense is I can already see that there is a loosening of some of the hardline approach that you saw earlier. The election of President Pezeshkian, though he has not had much opportunity to really be the genuine leader of the country that he deserves to be, he won the election. We all of us believed at that time that the former Supreme Leader would go for a clone of Ibrahim Raisi. He did not. You had a reformist who became the president. I think that he has got all the right ideas. I actually believe that he could be in the tradition of Rouhani and Khatami and could genuinely lead the country in terms of its economic and social progress. But he needs space. He needs the support. Now, there is another thing that we have not discussed so far, the place of the Supreme Leader. We are told repeatedly from Israeli sources and American sources that he has been injured. What is the extent of the injury? Is he able to function as the Supreme Leader? In the Iranian arrangement, the constitution of Iran, the Supreme Leader is a very unique figure in that many of the crucial decisions relating to the country are taken by him. He has a separate advisory set up. He also directs the armed forces and the IRGC. So we don't know anything about the state of affairs relating to Mr. Mustafa Khamenei. So we need to know about that. But I have seen with great happiness and satisfaction that on the streets of Iran, you find the atmosphere is very relaxed, very casual, very friendly. Women, many of them do not have the hijab. I would like to make one point. The hijab should not be the criterion to judge a country whether it's progressive or regressive. It's a personal decision. And here I found a large number of young Iranian women have been permitted without any difficulty to go through the public spaces without the hijab. Certain of them have the hijab. So I would really say that the Iranian women, even with in the earlier order, when you had the strictures relating to hijab, they are some of the most accomplished women that you find in West Asia. They are filmmakers of international standing. They are writers. They are poets. They are artists. So I don't think we need to worry on that score. What we need to worry about is that the country is finally given an opportunity after over 40 years to fulfill its potential in terms of its resources, in terms of its civilizational background. And I am confident that given this opportunity, it will be a very good presence in the region, a stabilizing presence in the region, non-conflictual scenario. I would also demand the same approach with regard to Israel. The problem is not just in Iran. Please recall the problem is also primarily in Israel. It is Israel that has to finally fit itself in West Asia. Your question to me that if the Americans were to dilute their total blind support for Israel's maximalist agenda, what impact will it have on Israel? I believe it will be an extremely positive impact. I believe that Israel also will give up its siege mentality. It has been prone to violence for far too long, developed a very powerful propensity towards military action. They will finally realize that I belong to West Asia. I'm an integral part of West Asia, and my heritage is also from West Asia, and my future lies in engagement with this entire region, including with the Iranian people.
In the end, your last word, very briefly, it can be a yes or a no also. Who do you think has won this round, or who do you think was able to extract better out of this peace accord, Iran or the United States?
I think it has to be Iran because we expected so little from it. They have, with a very weak hand, they gave an outstanding account of themselves. We therefore had no evidence that they would have. We knew about their courage. We knew that they would never roll over. You remember the 8-year war that they had with the Iraqis, when the entire international community had supported Iraq. At that time, they had held their own. So I was not worried about that. But what I was worried about is that so much damage might be inflicted upon Iran that they may not be able to function effectively the way they actually did. Their missiles and their drones enabled them to give a very good account of themselves. They inflicted a lot of damage in Israel, which is not in the public domain. They were able to inflict a lot of damage on the American, and both their adversaries were able to see that this is not a pushover. It's a country worthy of great respect.
All right. Ambassador Talmiz Ahmad, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much for your invitation.